Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Hourly to Exit podcast. I am so excited for today's episode. I have Leah Neaderthal with me from Smart Gets Paid. And there's so many things we could talk about today. And so I'm going to let Leah introduce herself. But, it was one of those happy problems to go like, what am I going to talk with Leah about? Because there's so many things on the Hourly to Exit journey that we could talk about. But first, I want to let Leah introduce herself, and then I want to dive into today's topic.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me today.
Excited.
So, so I'm Leah Neaderthal. I'm the founder of Smart Gets Paid, and I help women run profitable, predictable consulting businesses. And in my world, that means being able to attract more of the right kinds of clients into your business and get paid more for your work, to get paid dramatically more for your work, so that you can run a profitable business. And have more time for yourself, and you're running the business instead of the business running you. So,
Ah,
and I do that through some programs that I work with women on. I have a podcast called the Smart Gets Paid podcast where I'm sharing strategies. But, you and I have a very similar goal. We go through it in different ways, which is how can we help women run the businesses that make them money and make them happy, and help them also grow as business owners and as people.
yeah, absolutely. And I have followed you, Leah, for some time, and I've also worked with her in her programs. And there was, obviously there's the very practical stuff of increasing our revenues. But one of the things that I really connected with Leah about is kind of this softer side and some of the softer skills of um, running a business and being a woman in business. And so as I thought about, I absolutely wanted Leah to be one of the first guests on the podcast. And I was thinking about what we would talk about. And then Leah wrote a newsletter at the end of March where she addressed the expertise dash humanity scale. And so basically that is, how do we show up in the world, like in public, in social media, speaking, in our writings, with our clients? Are we more on the expertise scale, like, okay, what do we know, what we know, we're the expert, versus the humanity scale, like who we are, outside of our expertise. And then she confessed that she's, had some trouble over there hanging out on the expertise side. And it really resonated with me because I have struggled with this mightily, and I was struggling with it, absolutely, when I met Leah. And so, for me, I graduated from law school in 1992, which is just 30 years ago, people. And so, when I
Just yesterday. It was
just
just
yesterday,
yesterday.
exactly. Yeah. And so, yeah, well, I'll tell you how long ago it was. It was back when name partners were still alive, And so the firm I was at, old school uh, law firm in San Francisco. And yes, literally one of the name partners was still alive. He was like 90 years old, smoking a cigar. And, you weren't supposed to smoke inside anymore. And, I had to wear a suit with a skirt and pantyhose and the whole thing. And, casual Friday meant a pantsuit, did not mean, chinos. And, very frequently I was the only woman in the room. I was almost always the only person of color in the room. And I was absolutely always the only Black woman in the room. And not any part of my humanity came with me. Let's just say it was all on the expertise side. And I have pretty much stayed on that side. And it's been fine, my decades as a lawyer. But it's really became a problem when it carried over into this transition as I'm working with female founders of expertise based businesses, is still trying to hang out on that expertise side. Which is why I really wanted to talk about this. When I had a conversation about exits, and I'm thinking, multiples and valuation, blah blah blah. And she's like, well, you got to think about the way people feel about it. I'm like, they care about that. I'm like, yes, they do. And so it has affected my voice, kind of trolling Bezos and my love affair with Mackenzie. And but it's still pretty scary for me. I still self edit a lot. Like just this week there's something I'm like, nah, I ain't posting that. And so I really wanted to dig into this today with Leah, because I know if I'm struggling with it, I know other women are struggling with this as well. So tell me about that newsletter post, what you were struggling with, where how we got here.
Yeah, totally. Well, and I have to credit a coach that I worked with. So there's a woman named Jessica Zweig who's a brilliant branding strategist, and she wrote a book and has an agency and all of that. She was a client of mine to learn how to sell and how to increase her revenue, get better clients, etc. And when I wanted to focus on my brand, I knew exactly who to go to. So I went back to her, and she's the one who introduced me to this concept of the expertise humanity scale.
Mm-hmm.
So right, so the newsletter that I wrote was about how I had been. I went to visit my parents after 2 years of the pandemic, not having visited them. I had seen them, but not flown with my son and my wife to see them. And now that I was back, as it always happens, you are flooded with like nostalgic memories and all of this stuff. And while I was there, we went in the middle of the week, so I had planned to do a LinkedIn Live on that Thursday, as I often do on various topics related to selling. Um, and I thought to myself, well, these such cute pictures of me from growing up. I mean, I was a pretty cute kid. And so what if I just like showed one on camera, right? Like little baby picture of Leah. And so I did. And I don't remember exactly what I said on the live, but I was reflecting afterwards thinking, wow, I mean, I I was giving myself a little credit for coming further along on the expertise humanity scale towards the humanity side. So you're right, the expertise and humanity scale, imagine like on one side of the scale is just pure expertise, being known for what you do and um, what you do in your business, maybe what you did in your career, right? And on the other side, the complete opposite side is humanity, right? Like who you are, how you feel about things, just who you are outside of your business. And like you, Erin, like I had spent all my time on the expertise side. Right. I felt super, super comfortable there because, I'm kind of like you. I mean, I was raised to be, I'm a total like type A overachiever. Right. And especially earlier in our careers, think about starting in school, right? You do good work, you get good grades. That's how you unlock opportunities, right? And then in our careers, we put our heads down, we do great work, unlike the way men are conditioned, right? We don't toot our own horns. We don't have to go out and shake 1,000 hands to like build our, whatever prestige. We do great work. And so um, that serves us really well. I mean, to some degree, can be argued, right? But it serves us fairly well in a corporate world. But when you start your own business and people are hiring you, not just for your skill set, but they actually have to like know you a little bit and like you have to, and I had to really try hard to pull myself off of the pure expertise side, you know? And so I think I'm sort of in the middle. I sort of, vacillate between sides, but it's a journey, right? It's a practice and but it's absolutely critical if you're going to run a business as a woman founder.
Yeah. And you do help women have visibility on LinkedIn and use LinkedIn as a outreach tool. So when we think about LinkedIn, and I know certainly the changes in the word count in the last year, so people are putting a lot more content on there. People understand the value of it and are doing more. Um, like, and this is definitely my struggle is that balance between the expertise side and the humanity side. Is there kind of a rule of thumb about like where we fall and what's too much? If it's a professional network, what's too much?
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer, but
Mm-hmm.
let me sort of look at it in a different way. So a lot of us, especially when you first started out your business, you're getting clients through referrals, right? Probably people that you knew in the past, or maybe you worked with, or they've gone on to different companies, or what have you, people who you have some type of relationship with. And then and that lasts for maybe 18 months to 2 years. You can, if with a lot of effort, you can keep that going. But if you think about it, when you start your business and when you're running your business, you no longer work with a lot of people in an office
Mhm.
who get to know how good you are at what you do, right? And so that's why people, there's just a limit to like the number of people we can have a career with,
Right.
especially when we're not having a career in a big company. And so you have to find a way to replicate that same getting to know you,
Mm.
right? Some people really like to do that at events. Of course, we haven't had any events in the past few years, but like um, doing that through networking or and what have you. But either people, a lot of us don't either like to do that or can't do that or just are limited, in
Mhm.
what's available to us or we want to take advantage of. So I think about LinkedIn as not just like a social network or a professional network or whatever, but LinkedIn, if you have a strategy to get visible on LinkedIn and know what to say and how to say it, LinkedIn essentially replicates that process of we get to know each other. I know that you're good at what you do. I feel like, we have some type of like friendly relationship. It replicates that at scale. So
Mm.
you're having that with a lot more people who are reading your posts and following along and, understanding the value you provide and who you provide it for.
Mhm.
So if you look at it like that, then you have to have a mix of that expertise and humanity. Imagine if you worked with somebody who never let you see any part of themselves other than just you know,
Mhm.
you guys can see this. I'm like, sort of
Yeah.
chopping my hands together right now, right? Like it was only about the numbers, or it's only about the strategy, or the documents or whatever, right? And never mentioned anything about, well, what did you do this past weekend,
Mhm.
or anything personal. It would be really hard to have a relationship with that person, even on a, cursory level. The same thing happens on LinkedIn. If you're only talking about the work or the strategies or the tips or whatever, and you're not showing any part of yourself, then people will know that you are very good at what you do, but they may not have that personal connection, that personal affinity.
Mhm.
So, back to your question, is there a rule of thumb? Not really,
Mhm.
but you have to make an effort to show a little bit. Start with, let's say if you're posting 3 times a week, start with one post every other week should be about the personal. And really, there are ways to drop in personal hints throughout.
Mhm.
So I always tell people start small, right? You don't have to talk about your biggest trauma in your first LinkedIn posts, but can you share a little bit
Mhm.
within the context of some expertise? I
Mhm.
don't know. Is that how did you start to weave that in, or how are you starting to weave that in?
For me, it was mostly about, kind of talking about working with women, women, wealth in the hands of women can change the world. And I was really, I had a lot of resistance even around declaring, working with women is that, not just from a niche perspective, but from is that antagonistic perspective, right? And so, will I turn people off? Will they be offended by it? And so I've had like, so that is getting more comfortable with that. That was kind of my first step. And I will say, I'm trying to think if I've ever done anything that was kind of borderline vulnerable. I don't think I have actually. And yeah. So
Well,
that's still part of my journey there.
yeah, I think it's a part of everyone's journey.
Mhm, mhm,
I think the biggest hurdle that I overcame, or I guess the piece of content, I think it was my newsletter that became a LinkedIn post or whatever it was, that uh, was the biggest mental hurdle for me to overcome. Was I posted something about, it was like when I got married, but I got married to a woman, which is like not, you don't see that every day in a professional context.
mhm,
And so, um, and I was worried. I was like, I'm gonna get trolled. I'm gonna get doxxed,
mhm,
right? Like uh, everybody's gonna come for me or whatever. All my clients are gonna hate me. And so I put it out there, and everyone was so excited, supportive. I started hearing from people who had been getting my newsletters, who either were a member of the LGBTQ community, or they had family members, or whatever, right? And it was a signal for me that not only should I do stuff like that, right? I should do more of it. And I just realized, like, if people didn't spark to that, or they
Mhm.
had a problem with that, then
Mhm.
they're going to hate working with me. And it's
Mhm.
just best that they unsubscribe,
Mhm. Right.
right?
Now you work with women. I mean, you specifically focus on women. Is it do the same, kind of parameters apply when you're not focused on women? Is this something that is specific to a female audience to want to talk to them in a more vulnerable, personal way?
That's a good question. I truly believe that even when so I work with people who are primarily selling into companies,
Mhm.
right? But even if you're selling into a company, you're selling into a person, and a
Mhm.
person at that company. And sure, if you provide a little bit more, life color, right? A little bit more humanity, um, I don't think it's going to hurt. If anything, people feel like they have some type of relationship with you, right? Even if they're watching from afar, what we call lurkers, as you know,
Mhm.
in pack your pipeline parlance, but people who are just in read only mode. But at worst, it'll make you more memorable,
Mhm.
right? And when we run our businesses, and for no matter what you're in, there's somebody else who does it too, right? You're never the only person who does what you do. So even being memorable, if the only purpose of the humanity is to be more memorable as
Mhm.
your clients are evaluating you over other providers, that still contributes
Mhm.
to success in the sales process.
Mhm. I like that. Think of it as being more memorable. Yeah, this is like a free coaching session for me. Thank you.
Well, and
So,
I just want to offer that, you know, as you have been working with me and following along, and noticed more of the humanity coming through, I will say that I would say that I practice controlled vulnerability,
mhm.
right? That's how I'm sort of referring to it in with my team. And you know, you don't have to show everything. Just
Mhm.
because you share something doesn't mean you have to offer everything.
Mhm.
And especially if it's more comfortable, like it is for me, to take the humanity and wrap it in some expertise, or vice
Mhm.
versa,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
Let there be a lesson there. How can you tie it back to the work? All of these things. So um you know controlled vulnerability is the way to go.
I like that. So have you noticed any changes during the pandemic? I mean, I know, you did your post about going gray during the pandemic. And so like, has that resulted in a little bit more of people's personality and humanity coming out?
Yeah, well, you guys, if you're listening, what she's referring to is I did go gray. I stopped coloring my hair, which I'd done for years. And not only did I go gray, I had to, in the process of, taking all the color out and replacing it with gray so that I didn't have this crazy transition of hair. I accidentally had a crazy transition of hair because I was blonde for like 4 months.
Okay.
So, and like, I can't hide all the
Mhm, mhm,
time. So I
mhm,
just
mhm,
may as well talk about it. And actually, I talk about so many things related to selling, about referrals and lead gen and pricing and messaging. But to be honest, like the stuff about going gray was the stuff that just people really had a connection to,
mhm, mhm,
more than anything else. So
mhm,
that was also a signal to me, right?
mhm. Right.
Um, have I seen a change? Absolutely. I think that people in the pandemic, a woman I used to work with said, she put it like, I guess we don't all have to pretend like we don't have personal lives anymore.
Mm, mhm,
So whether that meant dogs at home barking, or children who needed attention, or whatever, right? And so I think a lot of people are finding it not only easier to share more of the humanity on that expertise humanity scale, but finding it absolutely necessary,
mhm,
not for, to get clients or some strategic reason, but because we need it, right? We need it for each other. And we need to have that connection. Well, at least reading about somebody or sharing about yourself when you can't have that connection in person.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, the pandemic has been a real game changer in terms of how networking works for me. And I live in a rural part of Northern Virginia, like the exurbs of Washington, D.C. And going into the city was just like, that was a day trip. Like you can just go for lunch or go, even getting into town just to go for a drink was like, forget about it. And so I just didn't do that stuff. And since the pandemic, I've been able to participate in a lot more things that have gone online. And then also like get more involved with LinkedIn. And so, yeah, I definitely feel that there's like getting personal online, well, whether it's in writing or by Zoom or by what, like has become normalized, I guess, like we're just much more comfortable going there than certainly I felt like I was, a couple of years ago. So if there's
Yeah.
any silver lining, I guess there's
Yeah,
that. We're more
absolutely.
connected in that way.
Well, and I've also noticed not only are people sharing more humanity, but I think the type of humanity that they're sharing has changed.
Mhm.
You'll see a lot more people posting about things like, this is really hard, or I am struggling, or I am burned out,
Mhm.
or things are happening in my life that are difficult, right? Whether it's an aging parent or a child who's having trouble.
Mhm.
And it's really nice, in my view,
Mhm.
to, especially as somebody who like puts a ton of pressure on herself to do everything right and be perfect and overachieve, right? Like I'm sure a lot of your listeners
Mhm.
do. Um, but we know that that's not how real life actually is in our world, but we
Mhm.
don't see that in anybody else's world, right?
Right.
Um, Seeing that now, seeing people talk about it, seeing that, other people struggle too. And it's not just the highlight reel anymore,
Mhm.
is what we're seeing on social media. And I think that that's been really nice. I mean, for me personally, and for a lot of the women I know, to say, we don't have to be perfect. We don't have to pretend to be perfect. And let's just show up as ourselves.
Yeah, I agree completely. And yeah, I've been very moved by the things that people have been sharing on LinkedIn and other places. And it really makes you feel more connected. And I appreciate that. So, when you work, you mentioned Pack Your Pipeline. We talked about Smart Gets Paid. So I imagine women don't self-identify as having this expertise, humanity scale imbalance. So what is it like? But I'm sure there is a connection between the work that you do with women and them having some of these mindset issues. So what do women come to you? What are they struggling with when they come to you? And how do you work with them on some of these mindset issues?
Great question, but I'm gonna wait till it gets a little quieter. I don't know if you can hear that in the background. Can you hear that?
I cannot know.
No? Okay, good. I'm in a sort of an office, and sometimes people come in and out and it gets loud. Um, so the question was, what do people come to you for
Yeah.
if it's not this expertise humanity scale, right?
Well, that there's a connection between the two because you work with women and you do help them with mindset issues. So like what is the pain that they're feeling that they go, I need to go talk to Leah.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of women come to me because their consulting business is doing what they would call okay, but they know that they want it to do better. They've gotten clients for, you know, up to this point, they've gotten clients through referrals, but they're worried that that's going to go away, or they know that will go away because it always does. And they want to get ahead of, they want to finally learn how to actually get clients.
Mhm.
Women come to me because they discover what I discovered when I first started my consulting business, which is that it's about 1,000 times harder to sell your own stuff than it is to sell or promote somebody else's. Maybe what you did in your past career,
Mhm.
and this is just a skill gap that they know they need.
Mhm.
So I teach them how to get in front of the right clients, attract the right clients, fill their pipeline, lead a sales process, charge and get paid way more for their work, write winning proposals, the entire sales process. Because unless you were in sales, you don't have a sales background, right? So, like I didn't.
Mhm.
Um, but you discover that even if you don't like the selling part, you can actually learn how to do it really well, feel comfortable, and get paid very well for your consulting work. But in the context of that, I see this expertise humanity scale. It's like, yeah, nobody's walking in the door being like, I have an expertise humanity scale problem, right? But once they hear, about the scale, right? Once they become aware, then, nearly everyone I talk to acknowledges that they feel a lot more comfortable on the expertise side. And in that respect, the expertise humanity scale itself isn't a problem. It's a symptom of a problem, right? It's a symptom of a problem, which is I don't feel comfortable showing up. I don't know how to, position my work for value. I don't know how to lead a sales process and, to sort of take control and guide my clients. And I certainly don't know how to price my work for value and get paid what I could be getting paid. So it's actually kind of a diagnostic tool, just as much as a messaging framework.
That's great. So one of the things about you, you have sold a business. And so when I have a woman on the podcast who has sold a business, I would be remiss if I did not ask her what that process was like. And if you could share a little bit about tips and what you might do differently the next time.
Well, oh my gosh. Well, I'd say the first thing I would do differently is call you first. Yeah, it's so I ran a few businesses with my former partner, who's also my business partner and romantic partner. And yeah, when we split, it was time for me to walk away and like walk all the way away. And so that's, how the sale of the company and, other entities happened. But I will say that I don't know if I can say this. This is going to be edited, right? Like,
okay, sure, absolutely.
Because here's the thing. I didn't do shit. Like we basically like split what was in the bank account and called it a day. So I had no protection and no IP, and I paid like a crazy tax bill and all this stuff. You know what? I will say that. Let me do that over. So it sounds like. Right. So, I mean, Erin, and the reason why I should have talked to you is because I probably made every mistake of the book. I mean, both of us did, because what did we know? And I think also, it was to just let's acknowledge that there was a lot of emotion wrapped up in this, when you break off an engagement and walk away from the business and all of that stuff. Right. So, we didn't have the right IP protection. We didn't have anything this was not like really a grown-up split, right, of the assets or anything. And so I learned a whole lot. And first thing I learned is I need to call somebody like you. And now that I know you, that's the call.
Well, they do say that, to be prepared, because you really don't know when the end will come. They say, the business will end eventually. So with or without you, whether you're ready or not, they say, I think there's the 4Ds. There might be a fifth one that I'm not thinking of, but like death, disability, divorce, and dissolution. And so are you ready for what will happen under one of those circumstances to make sure that you're the best position to not be harmed, at minimum, do no harm, right? And hopefully be able to also take advantage of the value that you built in the business to date. So yes.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And the business, just as a, the business, one of the businesses that we co-founded is still around, still doing very, very well. I don't see any of that because of the sort of poor way that we went about it. But yeah, no, mine was a mix of like, not divorce, because we were 3 weeks from getting married. We broke off our engagement, but it was certainly some disillusionment in there.
Yes.
So sure. I had 1.5 of those items.
Well, thank you for sharing that. So, this is the Hourly to Exit podcast. And so we talk about building a service-based business that can hopefully be sold someday. And so part of the elements of that are, one, having exclusivity in our businesses so that we have assets that we own, like our intellectual property that we have protected, and we have a unique market position. and also that we have predictability in the business so that an acquirer knows that the business can run independently of us and that they can trust those financial projections. And so when we think about kind of the smart gets paid process, like where does that fit into creating a business that is scalable and hopefully saleable?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. So, where I play in this world, I mean, there are a lot of like business coaches out there, right? And they're doing all kinds of the businessy business stuff.
Mhm.
The part that I really focus on is helping women get paid dramatically more for their work and running the profitable part, like running a profitable business.
Mhm.
Um, if you're not getting paid enough, if you're working yourself into the ground, if you are at the mercy of your clients and their needs and you have no boundaries and you're constantly over delivering, then that's not a business that is sustainable, much less saleable,
Exactly.
right? So teaching women how to do client acquisition, right? So that your business has revenue, right? You have income, you have predictability on that front so that you can, sorry, I'm like totally tripping over my words right now. Um so that your business becomes sustainable and attractive.
Absolutely. Agree 100%. So, this is a very meta podcast. I'm a female founder of an expertise-based business that I hope to sell someday. And so you're a female founder of an expertise-based business. So, are you going to go again? You're going to try this again? Are you building to sell someday?
I'd like to. Yeah. I think what I understand about my business now that I didn't in previous businesses is the intellectual property that I'm creating. And I have a much greater appreciation for that.
Mhm.
So yeah, protecting that, building a platform, helping, evangelize what I do, and probably a number of things that I'm not even thinking about that you would have an eye towards. Absolutely. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm building it to help as many people as possible, and then
Yeah.
building it to sell.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, what we can do with our businesses, one, there's the income to take care of the people we care about now, and also to support the causes that we care about, right? There's more than one way to have an impact. And also someday, no matter how much we love our businesses, we'll be ready for another chapter. Just like when we raise a kid, we're ready for the kid to go and do something new eventually. And same with our businesses. So yeah,
Yeah.
having a plan for our next chapter, because there will be one. So we want to make sure that we are ready for it. So
Yeah. And I having an eye towards that, I think is really a constant practice, right? Because I'm having fun in this chapter,
yes, yes.
you
Oh,
know,
absolutely. Yeah, I can tell that
and
you do.
I am, and I feel, when I see the women that I work with have, you know, an incredible win, or they're increasing their prices, 5x, and they're signing new clients, and they're taking every Friday off, or they're taking a 3-week vacation and they come back to a signed proposal, or, all of these things. That's really fun for me.
Mhm.
And so if I can also, I guess let's make up a new scale. It's the running the business now scale and the running the business for the future scale.
Right.
So I have to bring myself from the having fun now, a little bit, a few steps closer on the preparing for the future scale.
Yeah, yeah. It is a balance, but the things that help you create a scalable business are the same things that make a saleable business. So we can work on both of them.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up, I have a couple of final questions for you. As you know, at Think Beyond IP, we believe in creating an economy that works for more of us. And I personally believe that wealth in the hands of women can change the world. So I'm wondering if there is a person or organization who is doing work that you admire to help build a more equitable society.
You know, I love this question. Um, a few years ago, around, well, this is like before George Floyd and, all of this. I think this was around like Trayvon. Um,
George
I
Floyd
really,
was at the beginning of the pandemic, I think
yeah,
April.
and Trayvon is like a lot earlier, but uh, I started reading the story about it's like Black Moms Bailout or National Women's Bailout.
Mhm.
Um, and it's a very simple concept that, I mean, that coming from a lot of complicated factors, right, and systemic factors, but um, a lot of what a lot of people are incarcerated for the sheer reason that they can't afford bail, which to me it seems like such an incredible injustice, right, and sort of criminalizing poverty.
Mhm.
And so this organization pays bail, right? It's simple enough. And so um, it's always one that I keep coming back to because the promise is so clear, the impact is so direct, and it makes such a change, right? Like an immediate change in the
Yes.
lives of so many families.
Yeah, keeping
So
them
that's
together. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that's the organization I keep coming back to.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. We will absolutely have that in the show notes. So, is there something exciting happening in your business that you'd like to share with the audience?
Oh, when is this going to come out?
Midsummer, I'd say, probably about 6 weeks.
Oh gosh. Okay.
Might be earlier though. I can change things. Is there
No, no,
something
no, no, no,
happening?
no, no, no. What's probably the most exciting thing right now is that my wife is expecting, but I haven't announced it publicly, and so I, but I will announce it. She's doing the middle of July, July
Okay.
16th. So if it was like coming out tomorrow, I probably wouldn't say that.
Oh,
But
okay.
if it's coming out, further down the road, I'm happy to share. Um, so let me do that again. So the thing that's the most exciting in my life, which will absolutely impact my business, is that my wife is expecting. She's pregnant with our second child,
Oh,
and due in this summer. And so
congratulations. That is
thank you.
cool.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a toddler. My our son, I carried him, and now it's her turn to carry our next child. And so and it's funny because I'm reflecting on how I prepared my business last time and how I'm preparing my business this time. And it's so different because I know so much more about how to have a baby and what life with the newborn is like. But yeah, that's definitely the thing that's the most exciting. And
Oh, that is
it's happening.
fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And finally, where can people find you?
Yeah. So you can always find me on LinkedIn, as you know, Erin. I'm posting all the time. You can find me, just look for Leah Neaderthal on LinkedIn. If you are a podcast person, and I imagine you are because you're listening to this podcast, check out my podcast at Smart Gets Paid, or at the Smart Gets Paid podcast on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. And of course, my website at smartgetspaid.com.
All fantastic resources. Thank you again, Leah. This has been absolutely a joy. I've enjoyed having you so much wonderful information you shared with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. Let me do that over. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.